Okay, welcome to the Some Things Never Change Lab virtual edition, where I will be walking through each of the experiments and showing you the results. So we're going to start with experiment 1, where water is added to sodium chloride to produce aqueous sodium chloride. Remember, before you do any of these experiments, you got to make your prediction as to whether the reactants or the products will have a greater mass. So you're circling the less than, greater than, or equal to sign right there in the middle of those two scales. Okay, so here for experiment 1, we have NaCl in solid form. So you need to make a description of this reactant. And then this is water, as you can see. So make your description, write your chemical formula, including the state of matter. This is the total mass before we do the reaction, before mixing. Okay, so you'll record that in the total mass before mixing box. Okay, so we just filled out this part. You have enough information to fill out that section, so go ahead and pause if you need more time. Okay, now we are going to combine our two reactants from experiment 1. So we're looking at the yellow box now. All right, ready? Here we go. So we take the H2O. Make sure you get all the H2O in. Let's give a little swirl. So here we have the salt and the water now mixed. And let's look at the mass. All right, let's look at the mass here. Okay, there you have it. So that mass amount is what you're recording, and the total mass after mixing include the units. Okay, so you should have all of the rest of this yellow table filled out. The chemical formula, the description of what it looked like, and then whether you have a mass change. And you got to revisit your predictions. All right, now we are going to experiment 2, where we have aqueous sodium carbonate added to aqueous calcium chloride, and it produces produces aqueous sodium chloride and solid calcium carbonate. So you can see, here's the formula right here. You can use the picture as an example. Okay, you got the reactants on the left, products on the right. You can see in the products that in one of the beakers, you have like these little pebbles or something solid that looks at the bottom, like it's at the bottom of one of these beakers. So what you guys need to do first is to predict, all right, let's get into focus here, is to predict which one will have a greater mass. Will it be the mass of the reactants or the mass of the products? Okay, now we're going to test we're going to look at our reactants. We're going to look at sodium carbonate and calcium chloride, and you guys are going to provide a description of each, and then we're going to look at the mass that we have before mixing. Okay, so here's the sodium carbonate. Ready? You can see it right in here. I'm going to pour it out into this beaker. All right, so we have the sodium carbonate right here. Next we have the calcium chloride right here. So you can tell they both have a similar appearance. What you guys want to do right now is fill that into the description of each reactant. And then, you want to fill in the chemical formula of each reactant, including the state of matter. So go ahead, you can pause the video if you need to, take a second to do that. Okay, Now we're going to take the mass of both of these two beakers. Let's make sure that we have this zeroed out. There we go. Okay, so that number is what you're recording right here, total mass before mixing. All right, now we are going to mix the two together and take the mass again. Okay, so we just mixed them. Here's the new mass, or I shouldn't say new, here's the mass. You're recording that into the total mass after mixing. Now let's take a look at what we have. So if we look really close, it kind of appears like we have a solid that's formed. It almost kind of looks like, if we swirl this up a little bit, like a snot of some degree, a goopy mass. Let's give this a good swirl. Oh, look at that. Interesting. So within that beaker, you have some things that are solid. Okay, that's the precipitate that forms, and that's a calcium carbonate. And within that solid, you also have some liquid, which is sodium chloride. You need to provide the formula and then provide a description of each. Okay, for our final experiment, solid sodium carbonate is added to aqueous acetic acid to produce aqueous sodium acetate, water, and carbon dioxide gas. There's the formula, pretty complex. And then here's the imagery, so you can see what you have between the two. Now remember, you got to make your prediction. Based on this formula, what do you think is going to have the greater mass, the reactants or the products? Okay, take a second to guess or make a prediction and then provide your explanation. Okay, so your predictions should have been made. And now what we're going to do is we're going to look at this orange table. So our two reactants that we have are sodium carbonate and acetic acid, which is also known as vinegar. Okay, so first thing you want to do is fill in the chemical formula of both of those reactants. Make sure to include the state of matter. And then the description. So I'll help you with the description part. This is vinegar. Okay. Here is vinegar. Make your description of vinegar. And if I just giving it a little whiff, it's got a nice sour smell to it. Okay. And then this is sodium carbonate. Sodium carbonate. So go ahead and make your descriptions of sodium carbonate. Okay, we're gonna fill in the total mass before mixing. Include the units. So here's both items on the scale. Here's the mass. Go ahead and record that in. Okay, we're now on to the reaction side of it. So we're gonna perform our reaction. So we take the vinegar, we add it to the sodium carbonate. And you can see some pretty good bubbling and fizzing going on there. So the bubbling and fizzing means a gas was released. Okay, so we're going to, let's see if we can get in focus. There we go. We're going to take the mass of these now. All right, here we go. Pulling these over to the scale. All right, So here's the new mass. You want to compare that to the old mass. So you're filling in that number into the total mass after mixing, and then compare that to your prediction.